future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
And greetings and salutations, everyone. We're trying to whip you guys into shape here. This is Walt Lusk. I am your host of Dr. Judy WTF with, of course, Dr. Judy Rosenberg. And the show is Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud. Although today we're kind of doing something kind of a little different. We are going to kind of shrink a movie that was recommended to us late last year. But it's more or less a documentary, so we're going to be addressing the issues that are related to the documentary. And the documentary is entitled Trophy Kids. And it's basically about overbearing parents who overparent. And this is a call-in show, and so if you have issues with being an overbearing parent, or you have been a, can I say victim? Yeah. Of an overbearing parent, you can call us at area code 323-843-2826. We're also on Stitcher and iTunes, and of course you can see this later in all of our shows on YouTube. And this was a suggestion by writing us at info@drjudywtf.com, so you can do that. This just in, folks, if you have an iPhone, you need to go right now to your app store on your iPhone and get the Psychological Healing Center app on your phone so you can get all the latest and the greatest stuff from Dr. Judy. We got shows, blog, articles, part of your book.
Link to the mind map.
Link to the mind map.
Link to the show. Link to, if you play around with it a little bit, you can link it to the Peaceful Healing Dialogue.
Yes.
And let me think what other goodies. Lots of blogs and, yeah, it's a good link.
Well, of course, it's a good app. It's a good app.
So connect up.
Get connected.
Yes.
And of course, she alludes to her book, which is going off like hotcakes, entitled "Be the Cause: Healing Human Disconnect," which is actually the kind of the byline of our show. And Judy and I believe that we as individuals, we as couples, we as lovers, as parents, as families, as employees, as a race, as a nation, are more disconnected than we've ever been. And the goal here is to heal that disconnect.
And also on the app is a link to the book. You can purchase it via the app, and you can read a bunch of material. I think the first few chapters are actually available.
Well, there you go.
On the app, so you can have a sneak preview of the book.
And then you want to get the book. Now, you have the book, right?
I have the book. Here's the book.
And
it's
this is
real.
What it looks like. It's in paperback, and it's in Kindle form on Amazon.
And here it is. And the metaphor is that we have to...
Let's put a little more towards your face. There you go.
You
Perfect.
have to decode the past, and then you have to be the cause of recoding your future. And there it is. It's a metaphor for the encodings that bury into the psyche in the first few years of life. I call that the psychoviruses that go in from the wounds of childhood. And then these psychoviruses make us psycho. And then we go into a process of chaos and defenses, and those eventually break down. And the purpose of the mind map system, the mind map therapy, is to heal through these wounds, decode the past, and recode the future. So this is a call-in show. I know we have one call-in. We will take that call-in very, very soon, but we'll talk a little bit more about the
Trophy Kids is a
show.
movie that came out 2 years ago. It was an HBO special, and it was actually produced by a very well-known actor who's turned into a producer named Peter Berg. He's a great guy and very sensitive to all parties involved. And basically, it was a part of a series, and this one was basically an intense look at overbearing parents in sports. It asks the question: do you want what's best for your child, or do you want them to be the best
for you?
And then, of course, in looking at the documentary, it's about 4 parents and their children, right? Or do you want them to be the best or the best for you? Correct. We did a show not too long ago on helicoptering parents. You'd be wise to go back and check that one out too, because this is kind of along those same lines. And it's also along the lines, the last 2 shows we've done is on parenting. So this is kind of, how do I put this away? How to not be a sports parent. Trophy Kids is nothing short of infuriating and excruciating to watch, not because it's bad, because the story it tells is absolutely blood-boiling as it chronologicals the season of several kids. There's 4 kids. One is golf, one is football, one is basketball, and one is tennis. Playing through sports, all of their parents' forced decision. It's heartbreaking to witness, as it seems some of these kids genuinely love the sports, but the incessant nature of their peers puts them under countless hours of stress and agony. It has a unique visual look about it, almost as if it was presented as a sports cast during certain segments of the documentary.
So just to say a little bit about what injures the human psyche, and we talk about this quite a bit. The basic injuries of disconnect, predicated on the concept of disconnect, is abuse in the form of physical abuse, verbal abuse, or sexual abuse, and then neglect, which is really where you don't give enough eye contact, skin contact, attention to your child. And then there's the concept of smothering, which is an overlooked concept, but it's a very injurious form of killing off your child and preventing your child from growing. So I think in terms of these aspects of human disconnect and injuries to the self, I would put this conversation that we're going to enter into the category of smothering.
Oh my goodness, it is so smothering. For example, the father who had a young daughter who was in golf, I mean, she would be sitting there putting or trying to drive a ball, and I mean, he'd sit there and literally after every time she swung her club, can't you hit the ball straight? Can't you hit it toward the hole? Well, my goodness, what is the whole point of playing golf? It is to hit the ball straight, of course, and to get it in the hole. And anybody who's played golf, that's kind of like the overall theme. And if you miss it, you're already shoulding on yourself that you missed it. You don't have to have an overbearing parent muttering under his breath, calling her a little bitch, and telling her every time. It was just insane to watch.
So what do you think that child is encoding into the fiber of their being? Speaking of encoding, what's she encoding?
I'm not good enough.
I think so.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not able to please you, and therefore I won't be loved. If I'm not able to please you, therefore I won't be loved. Something like that. Something like I'm not good enough.
Yeah, and that one particularly, there was a football dad who was the worst. He was the epitome of, oh my goodness, I can't even call him a narcissist. I mean, the child could not even, he was 15 years old and he played football, and he couldn't even have a conversation with his father because his father was attempting to control the conversation, whatever the conversation was about, let alone the fact that he have to wake up at 5 a.m. and drink a protein drink, and then we go practice football, then go to school, then he'd play football, then do more practice at home, and then get up at 5 a.m. I mean, I'm tired just watching it.
So to look at what's going on behind the scenes here, because we look to the cause of the problem is always the family of origin. And I didn't say fault, so don't confuse the two. Okay, so cause means that it's multi-generational and that the parent or parents of these children were also damaged by their parents, and their parents were damaged by their parents, and this goes on and on and on and on. So what's going on behind the scenes here is it seems like this particular father needed to live out his dreams or dream, and he couldn't, so he's now using his trophy child as a vehicle to get the trophy that he never got.
It's interesting you should mention that, because in the documentary, it's about an hour and a half long, he was a big Washington Huskies fan. So guess what they did during the preseason? The Washington Huskies, they flew up to where they were divorced, and that's where Mom lived, up in Seattle area, and saw the Washington Huskies and hung out with them for a while. And of course, he's commenting all the way, see how they play, see how they do, see this, see that,
Right.
and just pointing it out to a son who's more interested in texting on his phone.
The son was more interested in texting. Well, he had to get away from these parents, right? So that was
Yeah,
his escape.
Get away from Dad.
So if you would be so kind to put the mind map up, I can map it up for you.
And those of you who are
And,
listening, you can actually go to drjudywtf.com to see it.
Or, if
Or on
you're-
your app, on your
Yes.
iPhone, you can
Thank
see it there
you.
too.
And we're working on an app for
Android.
for the Android as well. So give us a little chance to do that. So the mind map being up, yes. So you can see that the top row is where you encode the wounds of childhood. Panel 1 being the separations, either the abuses, the neglects, or the smothering. And then the reaction to the wound is a very primitive reaction to the wound, which is based on the amygdala or the emotional brain, and then the encoding happens there. So if we take this particular template and we superimpose this template on the father, in this case, then we can see that the father was injured at his causal level. Maybe he was criticized to death, or he was told that unless he performs, he's not worthy. So now, from his wounds to his child, he's infected his child with this horrendous task of performing and fulfilling on his wishes. So you can see that the wound of the father goes now to the wound of the child, and the mother, I think in this case, a little bit mitigates the damages.
Well, it's
She
interesting.
does,
There was a
right?
couple of things. Let me digress real quick.
Yeah.
One reviewer said basically, and is a fan of the show, as we know, is childhood is a hostage situation. You know, I had to at least get that one in there. And in this
course.
instance, it really is the epitome of that. And these children were hostages in every sense of the term. As long-term hostages, it makes me wonder what lasting effect, as you mentioned, the treatment by these parents will have on their children, and whether these children will grow up being passive and timid, or whether the cycle of abuse, it was definitely mental as well as emotional,
Right.
will continue into their children and others around them. The definition of a trophy is, quote, a souvenir of an achievement. The parents of this documentary seem to be looking at their child as, quote, an object of achievement. Of the child's achievement is not only their own, but instead usurped, taken literally or by force by the parent.
Wow. So speaking of objectifying your children, right? They're just little
Absolutely.
instruments
Yes.
to fulfill on your own agenda, in this case, the agenda of the trophy parent. And so what oftentimes happens is that these wounds of the parents are either mitigated by the parent of the other parent, or the kid gets trapped in the double dungeon of darkness. So in that case, what happens is that both the parents are pushing the child into this direction. If the child is lucky, then he or she has one parent where that parent just sometimes just goes along with the plan because she's bullied or he's bullied, or that parent really isn't paying attention to the serious nature of what's going on, is just unconscious of it.
Or, yeah, I was going to say unconscious. A lot of them really, it reminds me when we reviewed the movie Whiplash.
Right.
In it, the villain was a true villain, and he was a teacher in this instance, but he did not know he was a villain. He thought he was doing what was best for his students.
Right.
And in retrospect, of course, he was doing irreparable damage specifically to one student. And fortunately, the student rose above it. But again, he thought he was doing the best, didn't know he was a villain, and was a villain.
And I think these parents actually believe that they're doing the best
Yes.
for their children because they're beating the success out of them. Okay,
Even though
just
they-
like
even
in
though
the
they
movie Whiplash,
Yes.
they're basically catalysts for this immense success, and they see it as a gift to their child. Because on the other end of the spectrum, there are parents that ignore their children. So
Yes, as we talked about last show.
right, and nobody wants to be ignored. So this is, it's like the three bears and the three chairs. too hard, too soft, just right. So some are too soft and they are not present to their children. Some are just too hard and they helicopter, or they monitor their children and beat them into success and submission. And other people are able to parent in an authoritarian.
We talked about it in our parenting show. Authoritarian versus
manner.
authoritative.
Which one was the better one? I forgot.
Authoritative.
Okay.
And these parents are more authoritarian.
Very much so. So that the authoritative parent engages the child in letting the child know what the rules are. There's discussion around it. There's a sense of rules and roles and boundaries.
And definitely more very fair and reasonable boundaries.
Right. And in this case, with these scenarios, we're talking about no boundaries, because the parent actually will wake the kid up at 4 or 5 in the morning to make that child run 6 miles, or hit 200 tennis balls, or whatever's happening. And for those of you who are experiencing this trauma, we'd like to hear from you. I know we have one caller who wants to talk to us.
Give us a shout, yes.
Sure.
But in digressing a little bit, parents who go to extremes to force the child to succeed, overshadowing the child's reasons for wanting to play the sport, enjoyment and self-satisfaction of the activities kind of taking the back seat, and the associated achievement that goes with it.
And
the need for associated achievement.
The need. And what's really sad is that this is another form of narcissism.
Yes, it is.
And what we have been speaking a lot about is the subject of narcissism, which is based on injury. And a narcissist, by definition, has a lack of ability to empathize. A narcissist, by, I guess, the DSM definition, which
psychological.
DSM.
And
so,
here's our caller.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi.
Good evening. You're on the air with Walt and Dr. Judy, on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Yes, this is Ruth.
Hey, Ruth.
Hi.
Thanks so much for calling.
Hi. I'm on the delay. I'm listening to you live. It must
Well,
be a 10-second delay.
if you could turn your computer down, it would be great.
I did.
Thank you.
So the subject of yes. So the subject of, first of all, I want to thank you. You're one of our great fans, and
You've seen just a few of our YouTube shows.
So appreciative of your comments, and I looked at your beautiful dogs. Just want the audience to know that if you ever want an empathic, beautiful German Shepherd that is highly trained and just a very
Well, they're white. They're white shepherds. They're not necessarily German shepherds. They have straight backs, and they're much better than a standard shepherd. But yes, definitely these are very empathic dogs.
Well, these parents were not very empathic. So one day we'll invite you back on the show, because I want to talk about empathy in animals and what we have to learn from animals. So if you would be so kind, we'll create something along those lines. Just wondering, did you have any such upbringing, parents that were using you to
narcissistic,
to fulfill on their narcissistic needs, anything like that?
This is exactly 100%. I was brought up, children are to be seen and not heard.
Okay.
And we were almost utilitarian to our parents if we didn't serve them and serve my mother's needs. In fact, that's how I became a codependent adult. And both my siblings, we've all suffered tremendously. My sister's got dependent personality disorder. She's suffered tremendously in relationships, and I have too. And my parents were authoritarian. And a lot of abuse. So my father allowed my mother to be very abusive. I believe that she was a borderline personality disorder along with narcissistic traits.
Well, that's definitely a mouthful.
And they attract. I was just going to say they attract each other. The borderlines will hook up with narcissists who demean, devalue, and destroy them, and then the borderline will act out and go crazy and feel abandoned, and they're off to the dance. And so the children of these parents, go ahead, you're one of them. So what does it do to the human psyche?
What I finally realized, and thanks to your show, you've just opened up my mind to be able to understand myself in a way that I've never ever understood what my core wound was, and I can't thank you enough. But to me,
that's so sweet of you to say. Thank you.
I'm going through this grieving process because I'm understanding now what's wrong with me. And both the men in my life that I got closest to, although I never really got close to any man as an adult because I was terrified of emotional intimacy, I was always at arm's length with men, or I had long-distance boyfriends. But both of the men that I did finally end up with had borderline personality disorder, and it's taken me a year to break up with a man. He's suing me, and I have a court hearing on Monday, and he's stalking me, and he broke into my house, and all the things they say about him. And because I triggered his abandonment, and now that I understand that, it's life-changing to be able to understand what I'm doing. So I guess I'm looking at the panels, and I'm trying to understand, because I'm reading your book, Be the Cause, and then I'm going over it and over it. What I don't understand is how can I, and I had a wonderful date. I dated a doctor on Friday night, and he's very enamored with me, and we had a great time.
Great.
And then I just panicked, and I didn't, for 3 days I was scared to death, and I just pushed myself away from him because it was just,
so you self-sabotaged it after the first meeting with him.
Well, but even then, I don't even know the kind of men I should be dating, because I certainly want to date a man who's securely attached but doesn't have the same kind of wounds. And what I'm worried about is, because of my brain chemistry, I'm not going to be physically attracted or have chemistry with somebody who's normal, and they're going to be normal, and I'm not going to have a physical attraction because I'm screwed up.
Okay, so let's
back. That makes sense.
It totally makes sense. Okay, so let's back up a little bit, okay, and understand, and I'll try to also put it in the context of the theme of our show, which is trophy kids. And in a way, you were a trophy kid, maybe not insofar as they were forcing you to do sports, but you were forced to serve them. So you were an extension of their needs. So rather than them fulfilling your needs, okay, the flow... Right. But I'm sorry. Rather than your parents fulfilling your needs, the flow went the other way. And this is really, really damaging to the psyche, because it's not supposed to go in that order. The order of things have to go from parent to child, not from child to parent. So this is where the codependency comes in. This is where you're going to look for people who you serve them and they don't necessarily serve you. Okay, so this is something that you have to be really cognizant about. And the main thing is that because parents set the bar in terms of the psyche, we think that everyone's going to be like the parents, that every relationship is going to be like that parent. And unfortunately, Sigmund Freud, Dr. Sigmund Freud was right, because what we do is we attract the wounder. And who's your wounder? Somebody who's going to use you to serve them, right? Because that would go along the same lines of the template of your family of origin.
It's all you know.
Right. And then you're going to draw that person into your life, and there goes the dance, which is your wound plus his wound is going to activate and then create a trigger of your negative core beliefs. And then you'll have bam, 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 chaos, defense, breakdowns. And then we're going to run through the spin cycle again. So it's just a really horrible pattern to get into. and it keeps looping through.
Yeah,
That's why we call the show WTF, what the Freud is happening here. Well, there's no mystery. What's happening is that people are playing out their unconscious wounds, and when parents become injured themselves through their parents, and they don't receive their narcissistic supplies, which is the skin contact, the eye contact, the consistency, the ability to self-soothe, the self-esteem, then they're going to use their children. They're going to use their children to serve or to esteem them. And then the consequences are in the next generation, okay? The depression, the hopelessness, the low self-esteem, the codependency, the dependent personality disorder, eating disorders to fill what we refer to as the hole in the soul. I'm sure you read about that in the book, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you can...
No, that's exactly it. And the other thing that happens is you get the hero of the family and you get the scapegoat. And so my mother gets all of her narcissistic supply from my brother, who's the hero. So in a way, the trophy child I did experience that in my family, and my brother became the trophy child, and so all of my mother's narcissistic needs were filled through him, and then she had all her flying monkeys, and if you didn't go along with what her view of everything was, then you were an outcast, and she spat on you, and you were, the emotional abuse was so
You were probably very
incredible.
ostracized, right? You just were kind of pushed aside.
And I got an eating disorder when I was 18, 19, and I was blamed.
Were you experiencing? Was your eating disorder in the direction of anorexia or bulimia or overeating?
It was probably mostly bulimia, and my parents paid for this expensive. I went through this clinic in Seattle. It was the same time as Cherry Boone. I don't remember that, in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. That's when she died. Or not, was it not Cherry Boone? No, what was the name of that singer that sang?
I know who you're talking about, the Carpenters?
Oh,
Yes,
Karen
it was
Carpenter.
Karen
Karen Carpenter.
Okay,
of the
Yeah,
Carpenters.
it was
Yeah,
exactly
Karen
the same
Carpenter.
time when she died, and I think
Yes.
that's when the media started talking about it,
Yes.
and I think Cherry Boone also had it. But I just remember going in and getting treatment, and I remember I had a therapist, I had a nutritionist. They told me, they said, well, you grew up in a family, your mother has serious anger issues, and I was taught the other thing that happened in my family is religion. They cloaked everything in religion, and they said that we're damned to hell if we don't honor our father and mother.
They
So
spiritualize
I thought
everything.
This horrible, this horrible. I was also damned to hell. I mean, I was also going to go to hell, or whatever was going to happen to me, because if I dared question, I
The
couldn't
system.
dare question
Right.
what my
Their
parents were
system.
doing to me.
So what you're also getting into is family dynamics, and being a systems thinker, what happens is different alliances begin to form. So as your mother starts putting your brother on the pedestal, the whole family structure starts falling apart, because who's supposed to be your mother's partner?
Dad.
And my father.
Good hint. Well, good hint. Give away those answers.
I'll take film for 40, please.
Okay, fine. You'll win this round. So that's the thing, is that your father's supposed to be in executive charge, along with your mother, of the family. But when these family alliances happen, when these trophy parents align with their child, what happens is that oftentimes the other spouse is abandoned emotionally, because they're just not part of the game. They're not part of the system.
As you like to say, the dad is supposed to nurture the nurturer.
Right.
Well, it's not just that, but I was reading about how borderline women can actually deprive their husbands of sex, and so their husband not only is not getting, that, they're not getting sexual needs, and then you can even enter in sexual abuse of children when there's just all kinds of stuff going on. So, I mean, I think my mother was doing all kinds of crap, and she was always worshipped. Everybody always revered her. Nobody ever questioned anything
They're
that she
very
did.
persuasive. Everybody thinks they're wonderful, but behind closed doors, as you have experienced,
Exactly.
an entirely different story. And then you would attempt to go tell somebody that my mother really isn't like that. They wouldn't believe.
Right.
They don't believe you.
You know, that's so common. I just wanted to
Yeah,
say to both
very.
of you, this is so common
Yes.
where I have several patients in my practice right now who say, and they're really confused, like, is my mother not a really great person? I don't understand. I'm the only one who thinks so. When she meets her girlfriends, everyone says she's an amazing human being. And she volunteers at the hospital. And she's so kind to all the family members. And on and on and on. So it's kind of crazy making, isn't it? When you have everybody saying to you, you're nuts.
I had
right.
all my friends at school and summer camp and everything said, I wish I had parents like yours.
Yeah. Right.
I wish your mom. I wish I had your mom as my mom.
Yeah, I
Right.
did. I had that. I really did. All the time people would say, because my mother was so syrupy. She was just so syrupy sweet to everybody, and just she poured it on.
Oh,
and she
my
had
God.
to have this gorgeous house, and everything was for appearances. Everything.
Yep.
And
Right.
she never ever cared about what happened to us kids, or never came to any of my games. Never cared a hoot about anything that I ever did.
No, it was all about her.
Yeah.
Right, and in this case with the trophy parents, they do care, but for the wrong reasons. They care to go to the games, but only because when the child wins the game, then they become self-important because they can now display their little trophy and say, hey, look at my son. He's the best tennis player ever, and my daughter, she's amazing at whatever she's amazing at. And it's never to really esteem the child. So tell me.
And just a real quick comment. They love so much and so hard, and that they just don't know when to back off.
Yeah, and
and then I'm attacked by my brother, who's the trophy child, because he's also used by my mother as part of her flying monkey. So then, if I dare question anything, everybody comes down on me, and I can't see, I don't. There's something wrong with me, and so they label me as mentally ill.
Well, yeah, because why can't you?
Spreads rumors to everybody, and that she's our daughter who has this or that, and same with my sister.
Did you ever get the question, why can't you be like your brother?
No.
They never compared you guys? Okay, that happens sometimes.
And so,
did my brother?
Your brother, yes.
Well, it wasn't that. It wasn't so much to my face that it was just she idolized my brother, and my brother could do no wrong.
Put him on a
and
big
then
pedestal.
Behind closed door, my brother would abuse me, and my mother would let my brother abuse me, even as a little girl.
well,
He would lock me in closets and smother me in blankets and just physically hit me and hurt me. He was like 6 years older than me, and it was horrible. And I felt like my brother was an extension of my mother.
that's what he was. And you can see how the alliances get more and more split, and then you become the identified patient, as they call it in my profession. In other words, you're sick. And as I say in my book, and I say this a lot in therapy, is that we're not born sick, we're made sick. And so when we're in a dysfunctional family, then how are we supposed to feel? And then what makes matters worse is when the dysfunctional family that created the dysfunction, now the child is exhibiting symptoms, and now the child is being told that they're crazy and sick for the symptoms that the parents were the cause of. So it's really, really nasty.
Yeah,
that
and
way.
it's a neat, mean trick. In other words, you think it's your fault.
Always.
And it never, ever, ever was.
Right. And now I think, Ruth, what's happening with you is that you're beginning to wake up. Yes?
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely, yes, but it's just so sad. It's just so painful. I've never cried more in my life. And what's sad is I see the roadmap of my life, and there's so many lost loves that I had, and so many chances that I had to have, a wonderful, loving relationship. And now I'm really lonely, and it's just sad.
Okay,
And, I broke, and
No, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're grieving the loss of the mother and the father that you never really had, because it wasn't really an interconnected love. It was a love. It wasn't love. It wasn't love, and that's what happens.
It wasn't love. They're not capable of loving. I understand that.
So look,
I do.
Yeah.
I understand that. The thing that I'm worried about is I think I've risked really brain damage because of the disconnect and the not having my needs met. So when I had my children and I had home births and I breastfed, but I was married to a very violent and abusive husband.
Okay.
And so I got out of there, and now I'm going to be a grandmother for the first time. And I'm telling my daughter about this. And I'm wanting her to watch in their program last week in this parenting, and I'm trying to help my daughter. And my daughter's like, Mom, there's nothing wrong with our family, because my children now have been programmed by my parents that we have the perfect family. And so I just feel like I'm alone. I'm just crying by I'm trying to change everything on my own, and
no one understands. No one understands that everybody.
Yeah, they don't understand it. I did have a breakthrough with my sister who has dependent personality disorder, and she started crying, and she's like, I said, you just don't. My mother was so negligent with us kids. My sister was sexually abused as a child. She didn't care what happened to us, and I was mauled by a dog and viciously attacked and took my face off. So it's amazing that I'm I don't
that you
have
raise
more
dogs.
scars than I do, but it was because my mother was so extremely neglectful and didn't really care what happened. And then if we did say something, she was abusive. So
this is.
I'm the only one in the family that now recognizes this, and now I want to break the cycle and help my own children. I know they have wounds too, but at the same time, I'm needing my own. I'm not getting my needs met because now.
Okay, so I just want to say a few things because I know I want to get some points across to you because we have 5 minutes. But okay, so here's the thing that I want you to know: being in love is not love. Okay, some people refer to being in love as being in addiction. And I'm a romantic. I love the feeling of being in love. It's a beautiful thing. You in your particular case, and because you mentioned this so much, we've certainly talked about it before, is that you're so scared that you're only going to, quote, fall in love with and be attracted to men that are on this particular pathway or in this cycle. And so really what you have to look at is I want you to just forget in love, forget all that stuff, and I want you to really concentrate on finding a person that you like and that you really like. And maybe you could start with a girlfriend so that the pressure of the sexual tension and the relationship thing is off the table. So start with finding somebody that you really like and start falling in love with their qualities.
In love or in like?
In love with their qualities, okay? Because the in love thing is the sexual juice and the serotonin, the dopamine that makes us crazy and makes us want to bond with people that don't have qualities. Nothing wrong with falling in love with qualities. I love that this person is kind. Today, one of my patients said about her husband, it was really beautiful, and she started crying. She goes, oh my God, one of the things that makes me fall in love with my husband is that he's so generous. He always gives money to people who need money. He's so very, very generous. And so there she was falling in love with a really great character of that human being who happened to be her husband. So let's redefine this in love business, because from a Freudian repetition principle, the in love thing is about falling in love with your wounder, falling in love with repeating the pattern, falling in love with trying to repeat the pattern so that you can change it, turn it into a happy ending. And it never does unless you have really, really, really conscious therapy to guide people through the process. Okay, so seriously, Ruth, take the in love thing off. If you're going to date, that's fine. Pick somebody that you're attracted to. Definitely. They should smell right and look right and feel right and have some of those qualities that you're looking for. And then on top of that, start falling in love with their character. So notice how kind they are to the waiter. Notice how nice they are about listening to you. Notice how they connect with you and actually look at you in the eyes. So it's almost like you have to redirect your brain toward this new way of appreciation. Okay, does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it does. I'm just wondering if you ever get that chemistry with someone that you like you're saying, you love their character. I'm wondering if someone like me who's working on the panels and
okay, so
I'm just wondering if someone like me
okay.
can get chemistry with someone who is actually a good person who doesn't
Yeah.
have the same, isn't BPD or anything like
right.
that.
Okay, so here's the real solution to that, because I think you want a solution to this, is that it would be great if you would avail yourself to do some therapy with one of my team members on a sliding scale fee, if you can afford my rates. Very cool. And go through some truth dialogue so that you can actually get the poison out of you, so that you're not picking poison, that you're literally going to be expunging the poison and cleaning the slate and be complete with those conversations so that you don't have to do the WTF again. Okay, so to answer your question, what you want to do is you want to complete the past so that you can move forward, and you don't want to drag the new forward in where they're replications of the past. Okay, so a little bit of completion on that, not years of therapy, but a handful of sessions around that. And I think that you need to just push all of that energy out of you, all of the psychological attachments to that kind of dynamics out of you, and then clean the slate as much as you can. And then you go ahead and off of a clean blueprint, you decide what's right for you and what's nourishing for you.
Because if you remember,
Wonderful.
Ruth,
I'm sending a contact on your website right now.
yeah. If you remember, on the road to life, if you're driving in a car down the freeway, you've got two things to look at. You've got your windshield with everything in front of you, and then you have this little rear view mirror that's focused behind you. And unfortunately, many of us are focused on the rear view mirror more than we are on what's ahead of us. And if you focus on what's behind you while you're driving, inevitably you might crash. So yeah, the rear view mirror is important, and it's there and has its place. But the point is, we're trying to give you a little tune-up, and as Dr. Judy says, from the neck up, so that you can just focus on what's forward and deal with the present, and that way your future will be a whole lot brighter.
And the only reason to look in that rear view mirror is to process it through. Remember, my model is a from, through, to model. So yes, we do have to revisit the past, but only to clean it so you can move forward. So for those of you who are listening and who are trophy parents, please, no blame, shame, judgment, criticism of yourself, and also get some help so that you don't project your low self-esteem into your children, that you stop the cycle of this narcissistic wound, which is now manifesting as this extreme attachment to the outcome of your children's success because you need it for your own well-being and for the children of trophy parents or the children of parents who use them to serve them. We need to also get conscious, wake up, and do the process. So I know we're out of time. Yes, Walt?
Pretty much. I want to close off with one thing, but then we got to do our
and
song.
Ruth, thank you so much for calling in.
You know
really
what?
Appreciate it.
Thank you so
Call
much.
in
I'm
and
sorry I took so much of your time.
Hey,
Thank you
No, it
so
was
that's
great. It
that's
was
what
a
the
great
show's for.
conversation.
The conversation was
Yeah.
great. Do a little more homework, and as the book you've read, there are sections called "Think Like a Shrink," and call back in a month and tell us how it's going.
Absolutely.
We want to hear
So,
from you
sir,
again. Okay?
And
I'm making an appointment because I'm going to
Okay.
get my blueprint and have it ready.
And
Okay,
then
I'm
we'll expect
delighted.
a semi-full report soon.
Definitely.
Okay?
Definitely.
Thank you.
God
All
bless
right.
and thanks for
Bye-bye.
calling.
Bye.
Well, there you go, Dr. Judy. I want just to bring this back. There's a psychologist briefly that, just to bring it back to the documentary Trophy Kids, I thought we'd close with this, shares some insights about parenting in Trophy Kids. Most parents want their children to succeed, but some parents take it too far when it comes to sports. They take it to their children the physical and mental limit, seeing their children as the meal ticket or a vessel to continue their own past dreams. They are trying to raise Trophy Kids. They come from a place of caring, but others see it as, they see actions and not intentions. But they many times do irreparable damage. A lifetime, they develop and cause a lifetime of anxiety and depression because they sense they've never been good enough, right? Just like the caller, okay? He says when parents push their kids too hard, it has the opposite intended effect. The child may lose interest in the effort while no longer being there. And then lastly, because the type of role model that your children want to emulate, become the type of model you want your children to emulate by demeaning your children, not by becoming the person they want to emulate.
So the self-esteem.
Yes,
really goes
absolutely.
right down the
Oh yeah,
toilet.
well you just you hit it earlier, and that's very very true. So it's on it's HBO. I pulled it on Netflix streaming, and you can watch Trophy Kids if you want to go through it. It's there's one mom in the movie, a spiritual mom. She tries to spiritualize everything. It's God's will when in fact it's really hers. With a couple of twin boys who play tennis. Then there's the dad, we talked about, who's abusive of the father. There's the dad with the daughter who plays golf, and then there's two dads actually that are real big with basketball. What's interesting is all of these kids and parents are from Southern California.
Capital of
And it's like
performance.
The performance and the intensity and the desire to perform and be a star here. I can't believe it's got to be higher here than anywhere else. But it kind of says, oh my gosh, here we go again. Those crazy parents and those crazy kids in Southern California.
Right.
There's a lot of them are along the beach. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So at Trophy Kids, if it's you want to see how not to be a parent and how not to be a sports parent. What's interesting is someone pointed out the parents never ever once. I mean, some of the scenes you're seeing and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they're filming this, and that the parents are allowing them, as they're ranting and raving and belittling their child, are actually allowing this to be filmed. They never once tell their kid they love them. They never once put their hand around them or their arm around them and give them a hug and say, I love you, you're doing terrific, I'm proud of you.
Because you don't
The
hug
distance-
a trophy.
No,
Right?
you don't.
Well, maybe you do.
I don't know. It depends on how big the trophy is. But yeah, there was no emotional attachment. It was just all about why aren't you doing this? And I'm trying to help you. And, it's just overbearing. Is insane.
And another thing I just wanted to announce to those of you listening, we're working on transcribing
Some of the shows.
many of our shows.
We are.
And when that's done, you'll be able to have an ebook
Working on that.
with probably many shows
Yeah, we're
within,
gonna
and
make
then
a
you
little
can
ebook.
you can read all of the episodes, not just watch them.
So that's coming in the works. Another book by Dr. Judy, and this will be
Walt.
to be Judy and I, actually.
Yes, exactly.
The song, and as those of you who are fans of the show, we always take a song and we shrink it from a psychological perspective, and that's how we close out the show. The song we've chosen this time is called Just Like You, from a group called 3 Days Grace. So I'm going to read the lyrics, and then we're going to interpret the song and close out. I could be mean, I could be angry. I could be just like you. I could be fake, I could be stupid. I could be just like you.
So this person is saying that, Dad, Mom, we do have a lot in common, or at least we can act like we have a lot in common.
Yeah. You thought you were standing beside me. You were only in my way. You're wrong if you think that I'll be just like you.
Well, okay, at least this person has guts to start to separate and
And a
individuate.
little bit of
right?
self-esteem.
Yeah, a little bit.
You thought you were there to guide me. You were only in my way. You were wrong to think if I'll be just like you. You thought you were there to guide me. You were only in my way. You were wrong if you think that I'll be just like you.
Yeah, of course the person was in the way because that person was forcing that child to be just like him or her. And so the child finally noticed and said, hey, you thought that you were there to guide me. That's not guidance. This person's waking up. No way. You were just in my way.
I could be cold. I could be ruthless. I could be just like you. I could be weak. I could be senseless. I could be just like you. And then we have our chorus again. You thought you were standing beside me. You were only in my way. You were wrong if you think I would be just like you. You thought you were there to guide me. You were only in my way. You were wrong to think that I'd be just like you. Go ahead.
Well, that the child is making a distinction between who he or she is and who the parent is, and saying, you're wrong if you think that I'm going to just be a knockoff of who you are. That's not what I'm about. I have a future and I want to live my own life. And although I could be like you, I could be fake, I could be stupid, just like you. So they're sort of jabbing back at the parent, right? But ultimately they're saying, well, if you were trying to mold me, that's not what I need. I need to be my own person.
And along those lines, it says, on my own, because I can't take living with you. I'm alone, so I won't turn out like you. Want me to. You thought you were standing beside me. You were only in my way. You were wrong to think that I'd be just like you.
Right. So this person would rather be on his or her own because it's better to separate yourself from people like this so you don't get violated, and it's easier that the person just will be alone.
Yes, and sometimes, you know what, as I've said, you can pick your nose and you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family, because childhood, unfortunately, is a hostage situation.
Yeah.
And the best way to deal with it is really to get Dr. Judy's book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, and sign up and add the app on your iPhone, Psychological Healing Center. And again, if you want some information, you can go to drjudywtf.com, or you can write us an info@drjudywtf.com for show notes, which some of you have asked for, ideas of shows like this one, or shows to shrink. You can pull us on iTunes and Stitcher, and of course YouTube.
And I just wanted to say a big thank you to one of the people who's been one of our fans and actually did mind map therapy and just gave the nicest review. It's review number 22.
On Yelp.
On Yelp, and thank you so much. It was really a
Wow,
precious review.
I'll have to go read it.
So you'll go read it.
And
right.
Thank you very much for listening, folks, and tuning in. Until next time, God bless, and here's our song.